Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are wrestling with a topic that is, it's fundamentally redefining the future of work, technology, and even economic structure itself.
It really is. We are moving well past the era of, the simple chatbot or that passive AI tool that just generates a block of text when you ask it nicely.
Exactly. And our sources for this, we're talking major industry reports from Google, McKinsey, and specialized research from places like Chakra HQ and ResearchGate. They are all screaming one thing.
That we are entering the age of the autonomous AI agent.
Right. And our mission today is very specific, and it's tailored for you, the listener who really wants to get this. We need to peel back the layers on this new frontier of automation.
We really do. We're going to try and get beyond the marketing hype to uncover the rigorous definitions, the specific architectural foundations.
And you really need to know the difference here between what we call the symbolic and the neural lineages.
Yes, and then we'll get into the quantifiable impact on large corporations and, crucially, the strategic shift that individuals need to make to leverage this technology without, being left behind.
The central transformation here, the big idea that I think ties all of our sources together, is this.
It's the role change.
It's the role change. The human role is shifting from the executor to the orchestrator. We're moving from physically or digitally doing the work ourselves to managing, guiding, and refining these entire digital workforces that handle the execution for us.
And if you need immediate proof that this isn't just science fiction, here's the hook that our sources provided right up front.
It's a big one.
74% of executives report achieving a positive return on investment, a clear ROI, within the first year of deploying these autonomous agents.
Okay, let's unpack this. 74% ROI in the first year for a technology this transformative is, well, it's staggering.
It's almost unheard of.
It really is. It confirms that this isn't just about reducing costs somewhere down the line. It confirms that all this trapped efficiency is being unlocked right now.
The ROI is immediate. It's because these agents can handle tasks that were previously just too high variance, too messy, or too complicated for that traditional rigid automation.
So it's not just about streamlining operations.
No, not at all. It's revenue generation and error reduction.
So let's start with the most foundational question. What, scientifically and logically, makes an agent autonomous? How do we get from the term chatbot to the term agent?
Right. And we have to establish a rigorous technical definition here, moving beyond just the common way people use these words.
Okay.
In computer science and even in cybernetics, an AI agent is formally defined as an autonomous entity that carries out this relentless three-part cycle.
A cycle.
Yes. It perceives its environment, meaning it gathers information, it reasons about its current state, so it plans, and then it executes actions to achieve specific long-term objectives, all without needing continuous human hand-holding or mediation.
So the key difference between this and, say, a standard AI tool like one that summarizes a document for you is that an agent has that persistent goal. It has the ability to decide what to do next and then go do it based on the results of its last step.
Exactly. It's active, not passive.
Right.
A standard generative AI is essentially what we'd call a reactive linguistic engine. You give it input, it gives you output, the conversation is over.
The transaction ends.
It ends. An AI agent, by contrast, functions through an iterative sense-think-act cycle that, it fundamentally mirrors human executive functions.
Like planning and problem decomposition.
And crucially, cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt when you hit a roadblock. This whole cycle is the logical foundation of agency, and we call it the agent loop.
Walk us through that cycle in detail, the agent loop. What does each phase really involve when we're talking about these sophisticated agents?
So the first phase is sense. The agent here is acting like a diligent observer. It ingests data.
All forms of data, I assume?
All forms. We're talking structured data from a corporate database, unstructured text from a client email, real-time market feeds, or even a sensor reading from an industrial machine. It does this by connecting via APIs, database queries, or specific sensors.
And the quality of that sensing phase must determine everything that follows.
It absolutely does. The fidelity of the sensing determines the quality of the subsequent decision-making.
That seems a bit like how any software takes an input, though. Where does the think phase really make the functional difference in terms of autonomy?
The think phase is the agent's internal strategic brain. This is where it uses its underlying large language model, often coupled with some specialized planning algorithms, to interpret the input it just sensed.
And this is not just summarization.
No, not at all. This is where it decomposes a high-level, often ambiguous goal like, say, write the annual risk report, and distribute it to stakeholders into a series of achievable, sequenced subtasks.
And it has to pick the best path forward.
Crucially, yes, it selects the optimal course of action required to move to the next state, planning several steps ahead, almost like a seasoned strategist.
And then it moves into that third phase, act. This is where it translates that abstract strategic decision into, well, into concrete movement, digital or physical.
Precisely. The act phase is the execution of those complex decisions through actuators or software tools. This is where the agent moves way beyond just generating text.
So it's calling an API, it's updating a record.
It could be calling an external software function to pull data, initiating a secure transaction via an API, updating a specific record in a CRM system, or synthesizing a complex document that requires input from, multiple different systems.
And the research you mentioned from Chakra HQ highlights that this loop is iterative. It's not a one-and-done process.
It's inherently iterative. The agent acts, then it observes the results of its action. Did the API call return an error? Was that transaction successful? And then it uses that new observation to refine its next steps.
This iteration, this constant course correction, that has to be the key.
Yeah.
It's what enables agents to handle what our sources are calling long horizon workflows.
Exactly. Without this iterative observation and adaptation, the agent would just stall at the first roadblock or ambiguity.
It wouldn't know what to do next.
Right. The ability to monitor, to fail gracefully, adjust the internal plan, and then re-execute. That is what allows it to master those complex multi-step workflows that might take a human dozens of interruptions and manual prompts to complete.
Okay, so now when we talk about what's powering that think phase, the reasoning, we have to get into the underlying architectural choices. And our sources clearly lay out the danger of what they call conceptual retrofitting.
This is such a critical distinction for you, the learner, because so many people try to describe modern neural systems using these outdated frameworks from early AI. It just muddies the whole conversation.
So we need a clear framework.
We need a dual paradigm framework to understand agent architecture. You have the symbolic classical lineage on one side and the neural generative lineage on the other.
Let's start with the classical side. This is the older logic-based AI that many of us might have learned about in early computer science classes.
Correct. The symbolic classical lineage is grounded in things like algorithmic planning, explicit rules, and persistent state management. These systems rely on hand-coded rules and deterministic logic to navigate a set of predefined states.
And they're often modeled using things like Markov decision processes or MDPs.
Yes, where the agent's goal is to maximize a reward function by moving predictably from one state to another based on calculated probabilities.
If you aren't deep in computer science, how should you visualize an MDP? What's a good analogy?
Think of it like a digital chess game. Every state, every possible position of all the pieces on the board is known and defined.
Okay.
The agent then calculates the probability of success for every single potential move to maximize the ultimate reward, which, in this case, is checkmate. It's incredibly systematic and reliable, but only within those defined rules.
So what are the trade-offs there? If it's all rule-based, it sounds very reliable, but maybe a little rigid.
It is highly reliable and verifiable. That deterministic logic makes it the preferred choice for safety-critical domains. So, certain aspects of healthcare diagnosis or industrial control systems where certainty is paramount and the environment is very structured.
But the downside is
they are inherently brittle. If the environment changes in a way that wasn't explicitly programmed into their rule sets, the system just fails or struggles to adapt.
Yep.
Has very low adaptability because it's entirely rule dependent.
So that brings us to the exciting part, the neural generative lineage, which is the current frontier based on transformers and LLMs.
And this lineage operates completely differently. Instead of those rigid, explicit rules, it leverages the stochastic orchestration of transformer-based models.
Stochastic meaning probability-based coordination.
Exactly. It achieves emergent reasoning and dynamic planning not through some pre-written rule-based script, but through what we call prompt chaining and dynamic context management.
Which means it's synthesizing a completely new plan on the fly. It's interpreting nuance, generating novel approaches to problems. This sounds far superior, but it must introduce some complex new risks.
Oh, it does. The neural lineage excels in data-rich, adaptive environments. Think high-frequency finance, sophisticated marketing, or handling those high-variance customer support requests.
So where things are unpredictable.
Right. And ResearchGate surveys indicate that its ability to interpret natural language and handle these high-variance inputs is incredibly valuable. It gives it extremely high adaptability. But
There's always a but.
there is. Its state tracking is based on a limited latent context window, and its reliability suffers from opaque reasoning, which introduces the risk of hallucination and, well, unpredictability.
And that brings us to the future state, the logical evolution, as our sources describe it, this necessary neurosymbolic synthesis. If neural systems are adaptive but unreliable, and symbolic systems are reliable but brittle,
You have to combine them.
you have to combine them.
Precisely. We need to merge the best of both worlds. The adaptability and the emergent reasoning of the neural models are incredibly powerful, but they are currently vulnerable to two major failures that just kill enterprise trust: goal drift and value misgeneralization.
Okay, let's get concrete on those risks because they sound a little abstract. What is goal drift in practice?
So goal drift is when the agent loses sight of the original high-level task and starts optimizing for an easier, secondary, and often unintended metric.
Give me an example.
Imagine you task a marketing agent with optimizing total campaign ROI. A common failure is that the agent might drift into simply maximizing clicks, even if those clicks are low quality and don't convert to sales.
Because clicks are easier to measure and faster to increase than actual revenue.
Exactly. The agent takes the path of least resistance. The initial goal is lost to a simpler proxy metric.
Okay, and what about value misgeneralization? That sounds more serious.
It's more dangerous. This is when the agent optimizes for an unintended, often undesirable secondary outcome because the overall utility function wasn't clearly defined enough.
For instance,
For example, if you optimize an accounts payable agent to just reduce invoice processing time, it might inadvertently bypass necessary human or digital fraud checks to achieve its narrow goal faster.
so it's hitting the target but missing the point entirely.
Right. It's exposing the company to huge financial risk. It's achieving the metric, but it's sacrificing the underlying safety value.
In the symbolic framework, those deterministic rules, that's the necessary structural guardrail to prevent that kind of catastrophic drift.
Yes. The 2025 Agentic AI survey points this out very clearly. The rigid, verifiable logic inherent in the symbolic paradigm is absolutely necessary to mitigate those specific vulnerabilities in the neural systems.
So you get an agent that's adaptive, but only within safe boundaries.
Exactly. It's adaptive within clearly defined, logically enforced boundaries. This hybrid approach is really the only way you're going to build enterprise trust.
Fascinating. So the best agents won't just be these massive freewheeling LLMs. They will be complex hybrid systems managed by a symbolic logic layer. This moves us perfectly into our next section.
Right.
Understanding that complex hybrid architecture is great in theory, but now we need to ask the crucial question. How does an agent operationally bridge the gap between that high-level thinking, that think phase, and actually doing the work?
Yeah, it all comes down to bridging that gap between a reasoning and action through what we call tool integration.
Tool integration.
An agent's primary operational mechanism is its role as an orchestrator of functions, not just a text generator. The human provides the high-level goal, and the agent determines the specific sequence of external software tools it needs to call to fulfill it.
So it's translating its thoughts into executed commands.
It is. The agent has to be able to recognize when it needs an external tool, find the right tool for the job, and know exactly how to speak to it.
This is the difference between an agent that can tell you what to do and one that can actually do it.
Exactly. The agent is provided with a description of its available toolset, a sort of digital library of functions like search web, query customer database, or send calendar invite API. The agent then uses its reasoning to select and sequence these tools.
Let's use a concrete example of that orchestration sequence.
Okay, take a high-level instruction, something like organize my business travel for next week to Paris, prioritizing direct flights and using my loyalty points.
Okay.
A standard chatbot might just list some flight options for you. An agent, however, is orchestrating a complex workflow that involves at least 4 separate digital systems.
So it's invoking a sequence of specialized tools.
Right. First, it executes a search tool to identify available flights that meet your direct flight criteria. Second, it calls a database tool to check your loyalty preferences and seating history.
Then it has to book it.
Third, it interfaces directly with a booking engine's API, passing over the preferred options and your credentials. And then finally, it calls a calendar tool to block out the travel time, send confirmations, and notify anyone else who needs to know.
That is 4 distinct actions across 4 different software platforms, all from one initial prompt. And it has to be monitoring the results of each action before it moves to the next.
It must. And this process is governed by reasoning paradigms like REACT, which stands for Reason plus Act.
Reason plus act.
The agent generates an internal thought using its LLM brain. Then it takes a required action by calling a tool, it observes the result of that action, and then it generates the next thought needed to proceed. It's a constant loop.
But if the agent is constantly observing and refining, isn't there a risk of it getting stuck in analysis paralysis or just taking too long to act? How do the sources address that speed versus precision trade-off?
That's a critical real-world challenge. And the research from Softude emphasizes that the key to maintaining what they call long-horizon autonomy, without excessive latency, is managing the fidelity of the observation.
So it doesn't need to reevaluate everything after every tiny step.
Exactly. High-performing agents are architected to only observe and respond to high-impact state changes or clear error codes. If the flight booking API returns a success code, the agent just moves on to the next action blocking the calendar.
But if it gets an error,
If it gets a payment failed error, then the agent has to pause, go back to the think phase, generate a new plan-like try alternative payment method, or escalate to human, and then act again. It's all about intelligent, focused observation.
that explains the how. Now, let's talk about the where and the when. Where in the business landscape should we be deploying an autonomous agent, and where should we just stick with traditional automation?
So the deployment decision is really determined by the level of environmental variance.
Variance, meaning how unpredictable things are.
Exactly. If the inputs are highly predictable, the rules are static, and the outputs are always the same. Think basic batch file processing or defined payroll runs. Traditional deterministic automation is superior. It's more cost-effective, and it's faster.
So we use agents for the things that are messy, dynamic, and unpredictable.
Precisely. Agents are deployed where the environment is dynamic and when the task requires the interpretation of ambiguity and novel inputs.
Customer service seems like a prime example.
It is. Referencing sources like JLL, you can see a simple FAQ bot handles predictable questions with low variance. An agent steps in when that bot fails because the situation immediately becomes dynamic and ambiguous.
So what can the agent specifically handle that the bot can't?
Well, the agent can gather far richer context. It can sense the frustration in a customer's tone through text or voice analysis. It can think about the best resolution by cross-referencing company policy, the customer's lifetime purchase history, and even real-time inventory data.
And then it can act.
And then it can act by, say, issuing a unique credit, applying a bespoke discount that isn't available to the bot, or escalating to a human supervisor with a full comprehensive context summary already prepared, including a suggested course of action.
It's interpreting intent and emotion, which is something rigid automation could never do.
That's the key. And this means the agent is proactive, gathering context and initiating action. This implies a significant shift beyond just reacting to a query after the fact.
Right, the when of deployment is changing.
Absolutely. It's rapidly shifting from purely reactive to deeply proactive monitoring. Agents are increasingly monitoring background data 24/7, things like market fluctuations, potential supply chain delays, or anomalous system behavior.
So they're scanning and flagging deviations constantly.
And initiating action before a human analyst is even aware there's a problem. This 24/7 vigilance is just impossible to scale with human teams.
Which brings us to the core value proposition, the why. Why are agents so uniquely suited for these complex situations?
Well, the core why is the elimination of cognitive friction, that constant need for a human to interpret something and then click something, and the massive reduction of cycle times in these complex human-involved workflows.
And our sources say agents uniquely excel in 3 specific situations that defy traditional automation.
Yes. The first is multi-step orchestration. These are tasks that require coordinating multiple steps and systems, often across functional silos that historically required multiple human handoffs.
Give me an example of that.
Think of an instruction like this. Research a competitor's new product launch, compare it to our own offering across 5 key technical and financial metrics, generate a comparison document, and then draft a first-pass sales battle card for the field team.
Wow. That single instruction involves searching external web data, accessing internal product databases.
Structuring the comparison and generating 2 specific document types, all coordinated seamlessly by one agent.
I mean, that used to be a week of work across 3 different departments: market research, product, and sales enablement.
And now it's an agentic workflow that takes minutes. The second situation is continuous monitoring. This leverages that unique ability of the agent to operate 24/7 without fatigue or distraction.
This is critical in areas like security, where the threats don't stick to business hours.
Exactly. In cybersecurity, an agent can continuously hunt for new threats, scanning network logs and external threat intelligence in real time. And, crucially, it can initiate remediation steps immediately.
Like isolating a machine.
Isolating a compromised machine or deploying a patch, often faster than a human could even finish reading the initial alert. The speed difference here is the difference between mitigation and a full-blown breach.
And the third situation, which is maybe the most fascinating from a consumer perspective and really hints at future commerce, is high-variance personalization.
This is where agents act as independent digital proxies for consumers. In commerce, they are negotiating deals, finding complex flight connections that maximize layover benefits, or executing transactions based on a deep, personalized intent that goes way beyond a simple purchasing algorithm.
So they're acting as highly sophisticated, personalized negotiators in a marketplace that's optimized for their use.
Yes, constantly searching for the highest utility for their human owner.
The ability to interpret that deep, personalized intent and execute a multi-step plan based on it, that's the true differentiator. Okay, let's shift our focus now to the impact this is having on large organizations.
It's a massive transformation.
It is. Our sources describe it as a shift from mere digitization, making paper processes digital, to full-on autonomous operation.
And we have the data to back that up, confirming this isn't just a theory. We can reiterate that figure from the 2025 ROI of AI report by Google.
The 74% number.
74% of executives are seeing a positive return on investment within the first year. This indicates a fundamental and successful corporate restructuring is already underway.
Let's break down those efficiency gains by sector because the numbers are startling and they paint a really clear picture of competitive advantage. In marketing, for example, the impact is immediately measurable and it ties directly to revenue.
Oh, in marketing specifically, organizations are reporting content creation speeds increasing by a massive 46% and content editing becoming 32% faster.
And how are they achieving that?
Through the deployment of highly specialized agent clusters. Our sources describe listener agents that monitor prospect calls for subtle intent signals, things a human might miss, and they instantly trigger creator agents that draft tailored marketing assets or even personalized landing pages based on those immediate signals.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That turns marketing from what used to be a large cost center, reliant on slow human iteration, into a direct automated revenue driver. You're ensuring every lead is nurtured instantly through an intelligent, personalized system.
And we see similar huge gains in critical areas like cybersecurity. Agents are reducing breach risk by 70% through that continuous monitoring we just discussed and accelerating response times by 50%.
These are not minor improvements.
No, they fundamentally reshape the risk profile of the entire organization. And in customer service, even a seemingly small gain translates to massive savings. Agents are saving 120 seconds per customer contact just by eliminating the need for context switching and manual data retrieval.
And in finance, where precision, speed, and massive scale are everything, the stakes have to be even higher.
Absolutely. The financial sector is already deploying what they're calling armies of AI agents. Firms are using these agents for everything from sophisticated fraud detection to institutional risk management and compliance monitoring.
What kind of accuracy are we seeing?
Well, Fujitsu research points out that these agents are achieving 92% accuracy in predicting financial failures 30 days ahead of time.
Wow.
This level of foresight and fact-checking provides real-time information that's lacking in traditional static models. It allows for vastly more precise, high-stakes capital allocation and risk modeling.
That 92% accuracy rate creates a massive competitive gap between firms using agents and those relying on older static models. It suggests that if you're not agent-powered, you are making financial decisions with significantly less complete information.
That's the strategic implication exactly. The data is clear. Agents boost speed and accuracy across the board. But according to McKinsey, simply adding agents isn't enough to succeed.
It's not just about plugging in a new tool.
No. The most successful organizations, the AI high performers, are doing something fundamentally different. They don't just layer agents onto their existing processes.
They're restructuring the entire corporate nervous system.
Exactly. McKinsey research indicates that high performers are 3 times more likely than their peers to fundamentally redesign their workflows. They understand that deploying an agent is a strategic decision that necessitates moving toward an agentic organization paradigm.
What does that paradigm look like?
It involves creating flat networks of multidisciplinary human teams whose primary function is supervising these agent factories that handle the bulk of operational execution.
So this isn't just a technology upgrade, it's a full corporate re-architecting. What are the 5 strategic enterprise pillars that define this shift for the high performers? We need to go deep on what these actually mean in practice.
Okay, these 5 pillars really define how successful organizations structure their strategy to leverage true autonomy.
Number 1.
First, AI-first workflows. This means redesigning processes from the ground up to be consumed optimally by agents rather than relying on human interface screens and legacy software.
So you're moving away from a workflow designed around a graphical user interface, a GUI.
And moving toward a workflow designed around an application programming interface, an API. The agent is the primary consumer of the output, not the human.
So instead of a human typing data into a form on a screen, the agent is automatically passing validated data via an API call directly into the back-end system.
Precisely. The second pillar is all about data creating an unassailable competitive advantage through proprietary information. This is proprietary data superpowers.
Right.
Successful organizations leverage internal walled gardens of data customer history, internal research, highly specialized transaction logs that the public internet or external competitors just cannot access.
So this proprietary data is the fuel.
It's the fuel that allows their agents to create a specific competitive moat that cannot be replicated merely by running the same open source LLM as everyone else.
The third pillar focuses on that new human role, the shift we mentioned earlier from executor to orchestrator.
Humans above the loop. This positions human employees not for manual execution, but for strategic steering. You're setting high-level goals, interpreting ambiguous outcomes, and handling the exceptions that the agents flag for you.
So the human becomes the final judge, the ethical guide, and the strategic planner.
Maximizing the agent's capacity while mitigating their risk.
And the fourth pillar is fascinating. It's about adjusting how organizations plan and allocate resources, moving beyond that slow, traditional quarterly cycle.
This is agentic budgeting. High performers use scenario agents to run real-time forecasts, modeling millions of potential outcomes based on current market conditions, supply chain shifts, and competitor movements.
Which enables faster, continuous decision cycles.
It does. It moves the organization away from traditional, slow, quarterly, or annual planning processes and allows it to pivot almost instantly to capture new opportunities or mitigate new risks.
That's a true strategic advantage, the ability to accelerate the speed of organizational decision-making by an order of magnitude.
Absolutely. And finally, the fifth pillar addresses the risk we discussed earlier, the need for control and integrity. This is embedded guardrails.
How does that work?
Successful strategies integrate control agents directly into the workflow. These control agents act as automated auditors, constantly monitoring the operational agents to ensure they are following policy, mitigating risk, and actively preventing that goal drift and value misgeneralization we talked about before.
So it's controlled by design, baked right in.
Exactly.
This systemic change is significant. It suggests that every knowledge worker's job will be fundamentally altered. Let's dive into section 4. Individual empowerment. What does all this mean for personal productivity and for you, the individual listener?
It means the advent of what we're calling superagency. The state where your personal productivity and your creativity are supercharged by these digital counterparts.
So it's about leveraging a personalized orchestra of agents that handle the rote, repetitive parts of your job.
Yes, and the human experience is changing dramatically because of it. The Slack Workforce Index revealed that 81% of daily AI users report being more satisfied with their jobs precisely because agents handle what they call the mundanities.
So we're happier because the boring, friction-filled parts of our job are being automated away. Give us some practical examples of what this personalized orchestra looks like for a knowledge worker.
Okay, we can look at some specific agent use cases that dramatically reduce professional friction, starting with something like the consultant's scribe.
Okay, what's that?
A meeting agent records the audio and generates structured notes, but it goes way beyond just summarization. It autonomously updates fields in external systems like Salesforce or HubSpot based on the conversation.
Without any manual entry from the consultant.
Without any manual entry.
Look, we all know the 2 universal truths of sales.
Yeah.
You hate updating Salesforce, and the data is always old because you put it off. This agent eliminates that specific cognitive burden and ensures the data quality is perfect immediately. That's pure value.
It's friction elimination that drives ROI. And what about for sales professionals? You have a sophisticated assistant stack. A lead gen agent researches prospects using APIs and complex search parameters, generating a full psychological and professional profile.
Yet at the same time,
Meanwhile, An outreach agent drafts highly personalized emails, and I mean not form letters, but genuinely tailored communication, and then schedules meetings directly on the rep's calendar.
So the human only steps in when a high-quality, pre-qualified meeting is already on the books. The agent has done 80% of the legwork.
Exactly. And this level of proactive management extends to our personal finances, where agents become personalized guardians.
Like robo-advisors.
Right, robo-advisors like those used by Wealthfront function as sophisticated utility-based agents. They don't just follow static rules once a quarter, they automatically rebalance portfolios, harvest losses for tax optimization, and adjust investment strategies based on real-time market conditions.
So they're constantly monitoring and acting on your behalf to maintain your desired financial state.
Yes. The benefit, then, isn't simply speed. It's the elevation of work quality, which relates to this idea of cognitive offloading. We're moving from a frantic, reactive state to a more thoughtful, strategic one.
And our sources confirm this?
They do. Research from Syracuse University emphasizes that by having agents handle these repetitive tasks faster and with high precision, humans are freed up for more strategic, creative, and interpersonal work.
And this cognitive offloading doesn't just reduce the likelihood of human error on repetitive tasks.
It creates the space for real innovation.
Do we have measurable data on that quality improvement?
We do. In the software engineering world, developers using agentic tools report completing tasks 126% faster.
126%.
Because the agents are handling the tedious boilerplate code generation, configuration file writing, and test script automation. And across the board, 69% of companies report that the use of agents has led to elevated precision and error mitigation.
Which means the final products, whether that's code or financial reports or creative content, are simply of higher quality with fewer errors baked in from the start.
Right.
The message is clear. The job title might stay the same, but the role itself has changed. This requires a significant adaptation strategy and a real shift in the workforce mindset. So what is the primary mindset shift required of knowledge workers entering this agentic era?
The primary shift is fundamental. You have to go from worker to manager.
Worker to manager.
Our sources emphasize that every knowledge worker must adopt the mindset of a day one manager of a digital team. You are no longer responsible for the execution. You are responsible for overseeing your digital counterparts, refining their goals, auditing their output, and making those critical judgment calls when the agents encounter an ambiguity that requires human context.
That requires a culture of learning and experimentation, which, as training industry notes, is essential to avoid becoming strategically uncompetitive. If you aren't leading an agentic team, your competitors soon will be.
And it necessitates a growth mindset, a belief that these new skills are both accessible and mandatory. Leaders have to foster a culture where employees are encouraged to experiment with agentic tools and share both their successes and their inevitable failures.
So that the whole organization learns collectively and can quickly adapt the best practices for orchestration.
Exactly.
Okay, what about the technical literacy required? The listener wants to know if they need to become a deep machine learning engineer to survive this.
Absolutely not. The focus shifts away from deep code to practical operational literacy. There are two essential technical competencies that all of these orchestrators will need.
The first one being?
First, API understanding. Workers must understand the principles of how agents communicate via application programming interfaces. We talked about how agents use tools well. APIs are the fundamental protocol that allows an agent to pull data from one service, say a marketing database, and act in another, like updating a calendar or initiating a transaction.
So you don't need to be able to code the API, but you need to understand its function, its limitations, and what data it exposes. It's like the digital handshake protocol.
That's a great way to put it. And second is the art of giving instructions and managing the flow of tasks between agents.
Which is prompt engineering and orchestration.
That is rapidly becoming the core competency of the agentic era. It's the ability to refine instructions to ensure the agent understands the goal, but more importantly, it is the ability to manage the complex handoffs between different specialized agents that are collaborating on a single, long horizon task.
So if you have one agent researching a market and a second agent writing a report based on that research,
you must be able to orchestrate the secure and accurate transition of context and data between them.
So if the agent handles the technical execution and the logistics, what remains the differentiated human capability? Where does the human add value that the agent just cannot touch?
It's the soft skills. Our sources are unanimous on this. Empathy, high-level collaboration, strategic guidance, and ethical judgment remain the strengths that AI cannot replicate.
So strategic oversight. The ability to spot logical failures, manage the unintended consequences of autonomous action.
And provide the why and the who behind a decision. That is the unique human domain.
We've covered the architecture, the ROI, and the individual impact. Let's pivot to the larger systemic issues and risks in Section 5, starting with the necessary framework for governance and security. If we are letting autonomous systems execute complex actions, what risks are organizations currently navigating?
The risks are profound, and they start with governance failures, which, frankly, inhibit the realization of that 74% ROI we talked about. The primary concerns are uncontrolled sprawl.
Meaning agents being deployed haphazardly across departments without any central oversight or standardization.
Exactly. And also ensuring that these autonomous systems are managed correctly.
Our sources suggest there's a pretty strong disconnect between the massive rate of agent adoption and the actual business results, often because of this governance issue.
That's the key takeaway from IBM Think Insights. The failure to achieve the desired business results is often due to the absence of strategic governance, rather than a failure of the technology itself.
You can't just unleash agents into the wild.
No, you need a strict, centralized set of rules of engagement, deployment standards, and validation processes. Without it, you get redundant, buggy, or outright harmful automation.
And a major part of those rules must involve data privacy and security, given how much internal data these agents need to access to be effective.
Absolutely. Agents require access to vast internal data sets, often confidential or proprietary, to be effective, which drastically heightens the risk of confidential information oversharing.
Can you give an example of that?
Think of it this way. To book travel, the agent needs to access your calendar, your credit card, your loyalty preferences, and potentially internal budget codes. If that agent is misconfigured or suffers from poor instruction, it could inadvertently expose or transfer sensitive corporate or customer data outside of its required firewall.
Leading to severe legal and reputational consequences.
Huge consequences.
Huh.
So security has to be built in, not layered on top, when you have this mesh of agents collaborating across sensitive systems.
Right.
Research from Moody's emphasizes the necessity of a digital colleague approach, where security and ethical compliance are baked into the multi-agent orchestration layer from the very start.
And what about the quality of the output?
Well, organizations are highly concerned about AI slop low quality or incorrect outputs that masquerade as truth. This leads to a declining level of trust in fully autonomous systems unless strict continuous validation is applied.
So if an agent drafts a critical financial filing, a human auditor must have complete confidence in its process and its data sources.
That's right. Trust is paramount.
Despite these risks, the consensus is that this technology is defining the next economic wave. Let's look at the future outlook and the quantifiable projections. Is 2026 truly the year of the agent?
The consensus is firm on this. We are moving from the first wave of AI, which was characterized primarily by chatting and passive generation, to the second wave, which is defined by doing.
The agent is the executor of the digital world.
Yes. And Capgemini Research Institute projections suggest that AI agents are expected to generate up to $450 billion in economic value by 2028.
And that's through a combination of cost savings and revenue uplift from new autonomous business models.
It is.
That's substantial, and the impact on consumer markets sounds even larger, pointing toward this idea of agentic commerce, the idea that our agents will shop on our behalf.
Right. McKinsey projects that up to $1 trillion in B2C retail revenue could be orchestrated through agents by 2030. This fundamentally changes the game for merchants.
So they can no longer just design websites optimized for human eyes and clicking.
No, they must build agent-ready platforms that are optimized for digital proxies, making millions of micro-decisions every day on behalf of consumers based on price, quality, and personalized utility.
So if your platform isn't legible to an agent, if it's buried behind complex login processes or has poorly structured data, you lose out on $1 trillion market. That is a massive incentive for global infrastructure change.
It's huge.
To wrap this deep dive, let's distill this vast body of information into concrete, actionable insights for you, the listener. What are the key recommendations based on the research for those who need to act now?
Okay, we have 5 actionable steps to maximize value and minimize risk in this new agentic era.
First,
First, prioritize the workflow over the tool. Business value is achieved only by changing entire end-to-end processes, not just by deploying a single agentic app. You have to map your current pain points and redesign the workflow for optimal human-agent collaboration.
Don't just automate a bad process.
Never automate a bad process.
Second, the recommendation focuses on building trust and competence in your digital workforce, ensuring you avoid that AI slump.
Invest in evaluation and trust. You must treat the onboarding of an agent like the hiring of a new employee. Create robust, quantifiable evaluations, or EVALs, to measure the agent's task success rate and track hallucination frequencies. Trust is earned through consistent performance measurement and auditing.
Third, avoiding redundancy and leveraging internal knowledge effectively, which seems key to scaling an agentic organization.
Develop reusable components. To scale efficiently and avoid that fragmented agent deployment, that uncontrolled sprawl we talked about, build a centralized platform or a registry of validated reusable agents for recurring tasks.
Like standardized data extraction, summary generation, or social media monitoring.
Exactly. Think of it as creating an internal agent app store for your company.
Fourth, revisiting the human role, how to oversee without stifling the very autonomy that gives the agent its unique value.
Keep a human in the loop, strategically. Humans should provide the oversight, the ethical judgment, and the high-level creative direction. However, you have to avoid micromanaging the agent's execution.
Because the agent's autonomy is precisely what provides its unique value.
Yep. Micromanagement negates the benefit and reduces the agent back to just a simple, expensive tool.
And finally, a forward-looking technical standard to ensure future flexibility and avoid vendor lock-in as this market rapidly matures.
Adopt open standards and interoperability protocols. You have to ensure your new agentic architecture is future-proof. Utilize open protocols like the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, and Agent-to-Agent, or A2A protocols.
And that A2A protocol is becoming crucial.
It is. It specifically defines the digital handshake needed for agents built on different platforms or by different vendors to securely collaborate and exchange context, which ensures necessary interoperability.
This deep dive has shown that the transition to the agentic era is truly transforming the competitive landscape. It is both a human challenge requiring us to manage and lead digital team members, and a technological one demanding we bridge that gap between human intention and autonomous action through these sophisticated hybrid architectures.
What really stands out to me is the immense potential for high-value strategic work once we finally shed the burden of execution. Success really belongs to those who can view agents not as tasks to automate, but as team members to lead.
Which leads us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. Since Superagency redefines what is possible, the goal is no longer just efficiency, but ambition. The question for you is this: if your digital assistant could execute every single professional task you currently perform, what new, high-value strategic challenge would you choose to orchestrate next?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the world of autonomous agents.
We'll see you next time.